Hi, it's Penny here. Welcome to another reading vlog. So this week I've got one book that I'm super excited about and then another book on audiobook that I'm also excited about but also concerned or like just a little bit worried I'm not going to like it. So firstly we have Provenance by Ann Leckie. So this is kind of a spin-off from the Imperial Ridge trilogy set in the same world. I actually haven't. So this is a copy that I got from a little library and it's actually an uncorrected proof. So it doesn't have a plot synopsis on it. You know the internet is a thing. I could look it up on the internet. What a crazy idea. So we're following a woman, I guess, called Ingray, and she wants to be the heir even though her brother has her mother's favor. So she's got some kind of crazy plan where she's freed a thief from prison, using them to steal a priceless artifact, but then she gets back home and finds her planet in political turmoil. I don't really know. The original trilogy was one I really loved, where we had like these AI spaceships that inhabited the bodies of multiple people, and our main character was kind of a spaceship that's no longer a spaceship. They're now just stuck in a single human body. I will admit the third book in the trilogy wasn't my favorite, or not as good. Like, it was still good, but not as great as the first two in the trilogy. So I guess we'll see about this one. What I'm really hoping for is more of the aliens in this world, because I love them. So, I mean, I'll start this and we'll see how it really seems to be progressing. You can't trust these synopsises, right? The other thing I have is Blood Over Bright Haven by M.L. Wang. So this is a 15-hour audiobook. Do you know, I've heard a lot of people talk about this book, and I've said the synopsis before. I know I have, but I think my brain's just not working today. It's about this woman who is testing into this magic school, and it's one where they very rarely give women an opportunity to apply. And then she has managed to get in, but they're kind of still putting all these things in her way and making it very difficult for her to progress. So this book is really hyped, but her other book, The Sword of Kaigan, was also very hyped, and I really liked the first half, and then the direction it went in from there just didn't progress any of the parts of the first half that I really liked, and so I was really annoyed by it. And I guess I felt like what happened, I don't know, it just felt very disingenuous. I don't know. I've got some other vlogs somewhere, I'll probably never find them, where I complained about that book a lot. So anyway, because I didn't like that, I'm a little bit worried about Blood Over Bright Haven, but also hopeful that I might be wrong and that actually I'll love it like everyone else does. That's my hope. As usual, I don't really know what else is going to be happening this week. Probably nothing. And I'm quite happy with that, to be honest. I would like to just get some reading done, relax a bit. Actually, on the to-do list for this week is to tidy my library, even though, actually, you can probably see my shelves are a little bit messy behind me, but also all around me is a mess. So let's make a goal for this week to like tidy my shit up and get some books read. Okay, so I am thinking now that this is going to be a really good reading week. Firstly, I did tidy up my desk and my bookshelves a bit, so like everything just feels a little bit more organized and tidy, which is good for my mental state. As well though, I have started Provenance and I managed to get 114 pages in already, which I guess is like a quarter of the way in. And it's not the story I was expecting, but I'm still feeling very engaged in it. Basically, we're following this young woman, and she was adopted by this politician lady along with some other orphans, mainly because it was kind of fashionable to adopt at some point. And the idea has always been that whoever was the most successful of them would inherit. And for some reason she wants to, even though I'm not really sure that she really does want to. But it's more that she wants her mother's or her adopted mother's approval. And so she's come up with this crazy scheme where she got someone to break this other person out of prison. However, unfortunately, when this person was delivered to them, it wasn't the person that they were hoping for. But I think it might actually still work out for them, maybe. I guess we'll see. And also, so then her and this person that she's rescued from prison have been transported back to her home planet by this space captain who has this small spaceship. And there's some weird things going on with him too, which I feel like are going to have some longer term implications. So I'm enjoying the cast that's been introduced. There's also a few interesting things happening about, they're calling them vestiges, like seems like everyone on this planet is somewhat obsessed with like historical artifacts and like collecting them. So there's something going to go on with that. But also on this planet, and also other ones that were mentioned in the original trilogy, there's like these glass ruins that come from like some kind of previous civilization, and like giant glass structures. I feel like that's going to be a part of this, or we're going to learn more about that in this one as well. One thing that I did get put off from the beginning of this is that suddenly we had her referring to her brother and using the he pronoun. Now that shouldn't be weird, but because the first trilogy was all mostly she, like the main perspective character didn't really understand gender, not only because they were AI, so it wasn't relevant to them, but also because they came from a culture where everyone was called she. And so I got so used to, from that trilogy, everyone just being referred to as she. So then I was like, what? When we started calling people he, or it's also sometimes using a gender neutral pronoun, because it seems like, well, I'm still kind of understanding the way that pronouns are being used in this, but I have also gotten used to that now that I've like readjusted that it's not just going to be she's. But I think it goes to show that you can really adjust to any kind of gender situation pretty quickly. Like anything can become normal. It doesn't really matter. Anyway, I think more we're going to have a bit of an adventure about these historical artifacts. So I'm excited to get into that with this one. Then as well, on my run this morning, I started listening to Blood Over Brighthaven. I got a third of the way in and I'm so relieved. I'm loving it. I feel like it's such a massive step up in the quality of writing from the Sword of Kaigen. And I guess everyone who loved the Sword of Kaigen won't be thinking that, but honestly, it's like night and day. I felt like, I don't know how to describe it in the Sword of Kaigen, but I didn't feel like the characters and the plot and the world were as fully developed. Whereas in Blood Over Brighthaven, I straight away feel like these characters are real and like I'm in their world. Now, maybe it's because it's a little bit more of a typical Western world, which is something I'm more used to. Maybe, but I don't think it's just that. Maybe it's just that I can relate a lot more strongly to the main character, but also she just feels so much more real and the plot has so much better momentum. And as well, like the magic system is so great. And I think I've already worked out what's kind of going on with that, but the general idea is they have these like typewriter things, and on it has like a scope that they can use to like view the other world where they get magical energy or other kind of matter. They get the materials that they use to do their spells. They can scope them through this viewer, and then they type like kind of like programming on the typewriters. And then I think as well those spells can either be cast like straight away or be saved for later. It's a very interesting magic system, and it's all kind of based as well on this religion, which I think it's going to do some interesting things with that as well. So also in the beginning, when we get her exam into the magic school, I did think I was a little bit ruined for it because from the synopsis, I already knew that she was going to get in. However, I still thought by the time we got going in that examination, like the lead up to it was a bit, I don't know, it took me a little while to get into it, but once we got into the examination, I could really feel our main character's excitement and like passion. And then like after that, her disappointment of like not really being approved of because she's a woman, like even though she's achieved this great magical mastery. Such a relatable feeling, to be honest. Although she is sometimes still a very frustrating character, but maybe that's part of what makes her more real. So she's been given this janitor as her magic assistant, and he's a really interesting character as well. We actually got a little bit of his past right at the beginning, but she has a lot of prejudice against his people, so she's learning kind of a lot as well as he's learning a lot at the same time. So I'm a third of the way in. I now kind of know what's happening. I'm loving the characters. I'm enjoying kind of they've got this challenge to invent some kind of magical solution. And I'm enjoying that challenge and kind of some of the bigger themes. That's a relief because, as I said, I was worried that I wasn't going to like this one. But I think it's going to work out.
Lazy Sunday mornings, hiding under covers. I don't mind staying in with you. Play your favorite movie, laying right beside me. I don't mind when it's just us two. That corner coffee shop we like to go. Late night walks with you to take me home. With you I never feel alone.
I feel like I am getting to the point where I'm thinking about cutting my fringe again, even though I've only really just grown it out from the last fringe disaster. It's a bad idea. I shouldn't do it, right? I don't think I'll do it. We'll see. Good news is that I got a notification saying that my new bookshelves are on the way. So I ordered them about a month ago. They had to get into the supplier. They arrived in Auckland, so now they're being shipped down here. It says 3 to 5 days, but I'm kind of hoping, since the tracking already says they're on the way here, that they'll arrive over the weekend and then they'll just deliver them hopefully on Monday, but at least Tuesday. But I guess it could be any time in the week, but still exciting. Then I will have some new bookshelves to play with. Other good news is that I have been listening to Blood Over Brighthaven and it's going really well. So I think I'm 63% of the way through and it's delivering so much more than The Sword of Kaigan did. So The Sword of Kaigan also started up with this idea of the society being corrupt or like some hints about something being wrong with the way that the society worked. And I felt like it didn't really go anywhere with that, or where it did go was just really unsatisfying to me, and it was more of a like trauma-focused story. And I mean, what's happening in Blood Over Brighthaven is still quite traumatic, but I'm loving the way that it's approaching it. And also there's quite a lot of philosophy in there around like morality, but also around emotions that I was really enjoying. And like the thing that I guessed in the first third has kind of been confirmed, and like shit is going down as a result. And I'm just, it's so good. It's so good. I'm loving it. I'm so hopeful for the last third to really like come together and be so amazing. So fingers crossed for that. As well, I've been continuing Provenance. I think I'm nearly halfway. So I'm on like page 196. And I actually feel like in some ways, the main character in this is a little bit similar to Siona, the main character in Blood Over Brighthaven, but like also the opposite, because both characters are kind of like young women trying to prove themselves. But our main character in this one, Ingray, I'm not sure how to say that. She is very unsure of her abilities and like feels like she's not getting the approval of people around her, and like often feels very overwhelmed by things. But there's also like quite a lot of political complexity around her. I will say I don't think that this book is as complex as the original Ancillary trilogy. It's a much more like grounded, relatable story, even though there's like spaceships and crazy alien historical artifacts. Oh, and aliens. The aliens that are in this are not the aliens I was hoping for. I'm still hoping we'll get some of the translators in the second half, because it's the translators I love. The aliens we're getting though are still interesting, and definitely we don't know that much about them, which makes them even more interesting. As well in this, we've kind of had a bit of a murder mystery introduced, and I feel like kind of halfway through it's more like now we know what's going on, and it's a question of how is our main character going to deal with the situation that she's in. And there's definitely a lot of mentions through here of things that happened in the original trilogy and like things that are continuing to happen in the world because of what happened in that trilogy. So I don't know how much that stuff is actually going to end up playing into this, but potentially it could. Because there's quite a few different things going on in this, and they're a little bit interconnected, but also maybe not, depending on where it goes with it. And I do find, even though the chapters in this are quite long, and normally I'm not a fan of long chapters, but these ones, I feel like I can get through them pretty quickly, and so I'm getting through this quicker than I would have expected. It's definitely not as mentally taxing as the ancillary trilogy, but I felt very drawn in by everything that's happening in this and everything that's happening in Blood Over Brighthaven. So this is just a superb reading week. And if I can get my bookshelves, it'll be perfect. Well, that's I thought I would come over by the window to film an update, but it's way too bright for me. Anyway, the exciting thing about today is that my bookshelves have arrived, hence my ponytail, because it's been a bunch of work to put them together, and I have carpet burn on my knees. But what we have is over here a normal kind of wide one, and then another half width one. I still need to put the actual shelves in, but I've got the main bit made. And then I still have another half width one to make that I'm going to put in the middle of these, but to do that we have to move this light switch over a little bit, so I'm going to wait a bit to do that. Jace is going to help me. I also have this half height one over here that I'm going to use not just for books. There will be some books on it, but probably more like makeup and games and DVDs and crafts and stationery, all that kind of stuff. So I've got to put shelves in this now. I'm probably going to do that now while listening to the rest of Blood Over Brighthaven, which I'm right in the middle of the action. So I won't update you on anything else until that's done, because I just want to get my bookshelves together and also finish this amazing audiobook. Okay, so I have put the shelves in my bookshelves, and I started putting a few books on the shelves. Oops, don't fall over. I started putting a few books on the shelves, but what I kind of realized is that I don't really have a proper plan for what books I wanted to put on the shelf. I started putting kind of just my most expensive ones. I think the ones you can see aren't the most expensive ones, but my most expensive ones are my Brandon Sanderson Secret Project books and my Stormlight Archive books. So then I just put all the Brandon Sanderson books up on this shelf, and then I've got a few V. Schwab ones, and I think that's pretty much it on this one so far. Oh, a Descender graphic novel and some art by my sister. On the other one, all I did so far is put my Babysitters Club books down the bottom and a few other things. Honestly, what I actually need to do is open up my wardrobe and get out the boxes that I put aside, thinking like I don't have enough storage space for this stuff yet, so I'll wait till I get my new shelves. Now that I have my new shelves, I don't have an excuse for not sorting that stuff out, but I kind of know it's going to mean like getting a bunch of stuff out and making a massive mess, and even like working out which things from my main shelves I want to move to these shelves, and like figuring out the layout is going to mean a massive mess before we get to a final nice organization. So after all my bookshelf construction, I'm just not really willing to do that. So I guess I'll take a break. Maybe tomorrow I'll make a little bit of progress. I need to work out how to break the task down into small pieces, but I just don't know how to do that without having to live in a mess for a little while. And I know I like my library better when it's tidy. So we'll see. I did though, while I was sorting all this out, finish off Blood Over Brighthaven, and it was so good. I really loved it. Like, I'm going to give it 5 stars. I'm so glad that it lived up to the hype compared to like Sword of Kaigen. But I actually don't even want to talk about Sword of Kaigen with Blood Over Brighthaven now, because I feel like Blood Over Brighthaven shouldn't be clouded by that. It's its own thing. It's so great. I will admit I didn't cry near the end. Maybe that was because I was distracted by bookshelfy things. Because I could definitely see some people crying. But there were just so many great things about that book. The characters were great. The plot was great. Kind of the social themes were great. The way that it was explored and the way that it played out was very like awful but realistic. And then the whole magic system was so cool as well. And the writing was really good. And the audiobook narration was actually really good. Like, so good that I wonder whether that was part of the experience. It's one of those ones where the audiobook's so good that I'm like, if I read the physical book, would I have gotten as much out of it? I think so. But the audiobook narrator definitely added an extra level to it. As well, I did continue Provenance, and I think now I'm like 3/4 of the way through, and I will admit this last little bit that I've read has had some of that like craziness, weirdness that the original Ancillary Justice trilogy had, because like there was some weirdness with gender, mainly because we ran into this red chai. So the AI spaceship in the first trilogy comes from this civilization that's kind of been colonizing the universe, and they don't understand gender. They just call everyone she. And so we met this ambassador who just doesn't understand gender, and they're kind of like flustered when they get called out for calling someone the wrong gender, and then they try, but you can tell they're like stumbling over the word he and him because they just aren't confident with it. And I kind of just love the way that it's done. Like, they're trying, but they just have no concept of gender, and it's so interesting. Then as well, we got this alien. As I said, not the aliens I wanted, but like adjacent aliens. And we got this kind of big speech by one of them that was so weird. I just love the way that Ann Leckie creates these aliens that clearly have such a different perspective. So like when you're reading what they're saying, you have to really work to think, why would they say that? What does that even mean? And then maybe you don't even understand it all, but you can see how maybe they would understand it, or it might mean something to them. It's so well done. So I think the first half I didn't feel like had the complexity, but that little bit definitely had some bits that I was I just love it. It just fills me with such joy to have books full of like things that don't make sense, but they do make sense because the book has like built it to a point where it does make sense. Do you know what I mean? I don't know. But we probably did get a bit of that in Blood Over Brighthaven as well. Although I feel like when I'm talking at this point, maybe earlier in the vlog, I was more like raving about Blood Over Brighthaven. Now I finished it, I'm like solid, good, loved it. But maybe I lost... No, I don't think I lost anything. I just think it was like that oh shit part of Blood Over Brighthaven that I loved the most, and that was kind of like halfway to 3/4 of the way in. This one, because I'm at 3/4 of the way in, it's kind of the same thing. That's the point where it's like, oh shit, this is really happening. So I'll probably try and finish this one off, honestly, probably tomorrow by this point, but we'll see. And then we'll also see, I guess, how far I can get through this whole bookshelf organization stuff by the time I finish this. Okay, so my library is now even more messy, but we did stick up this extra little shelf in between the two big ones. And actually, we also did like the attachments at the top in case there's an earthquake, or like in case people try to pull it down. Mostly I was worried about earthquakes, so the whole library is a little bit safer now. But doing all that, I did take a bunch of books off the shelves, and I still don't have a plan about where I'm sticking them back, but I guess maybe over the next week or so things will start to get more organized. I don't know if that's true. Actually, I also realized in the last clip I talked about putting my most expensive books up on this shelf behind me, and I didn't really explain why. It's because this shelf gets the least sun, although I watched it through the day and it's really only this very corner where that's true. And then I thought about the books that I was talking about putting there, and I don't know if I want them right in the corner. So I think probably the only thing I'll leave is my art that my sister made me. It's like Undertale art. There's two characters in the game Undertale, and they're like so hyped for the destruction of humanity, and I always like to imagine it was me and my sister. Anyway, I have some really great art, so I'll put that in the corner where it shouldn't get too much light and shouldn't get faded, but I think everything else will be okay because the light kind of moves around through the day, so it doesn't get too much. Also, I can always close these net curtains at certain times to protect things as well. I like when I'm in here to have the curtains all open so I can see the beautiful green view. Anyway, I actually wanted to update you on my reading. So I did finish reading Provenance. I was reading this at my like regular infusion I have at the hospital, which is really just sitting around at the hospital for a few hours. And it was really difficult because right at the end we're kind of in this tense like hostage situation. So there's like negotiation, and Ingrid's really trying to logic through and work out what different people's motivations are and like what's going on. And it's quite complex and like a little bit mentally taxing. And when there's people around you talking, it's really not the best. So it took me a while to get through the ending, and it went on quite long. I just saw a bit that reminded me what I did really like is Ingrid's using like a translation utility, but like a real basic one to understand these hostage takers, and the translation's really terrible, and it was kind of fun, although difficult in the noisy space, but fun trying to work out what they were really saying. Anyway, it was a very satisfying ending. I still don't think that it was the same kind of story as the original trilogy, like not as mind-opening or as like bizarre ideas, kind of more relatable in some ways, but still twisty and political and fun. I had a good time with this. I did actually get delivered today Translation State. It's a little bit of a bigger edition than I was expecting. Like I thought it was going to be the same size as this, but it's not. But like the website I ordered it on was the cheapest, and this was the cheapest edition they had, so I thought it would be this size, but it didn't actually have the specifications. But it does match the size of this, and I had a look. There is like an edition kind of this style for Provenance, but none of the local stores really have it, so I'll probably keep my uncorrected proof, and then at least these are the same size as each other, right? Also, I will say, I don't think I noticed anything particularly in the uncorrected proof that I think was very off or different from the final. The only thing was, right near the beginning, there was a page in the wrong place, and I had to, like, it was like 2 pages were swapped, about 10 pages apart from each other. So I did have to read those pages in a different order from what they were included in here. And they were numbered wrong too. It wasn't that it just got put together wrong in printing or anything. But other than that, I don't think my uncorrected proof was a problem. And it's always good when you can get a good book for free, right? Then, as well, one other thing I did read since I last talked to you is The Cursed Princess Club. I think I started this in another vlog, and then last night I picked this up and just finished it off. So this is a reread for me. I originally read it on Webtoon, where you can read it for free, but I think now they're like limiting how much you can read a day on Webtoon. So that's annoying because I love binging through this. It's just a really cute story about the 3 pastel princesses, Maria and Lorena, their brother Jamie, and then Gwendolyn, and they are betrothed to the 3 plaid princes, these guys. And it's just really like heartwarming and hilarious. Basically, the youngest prince, when he discovers that he's going to have to marry Gwendolyn, is very upset. He calls her ugly. She gets upset and runs into the forest where she meets the Cursed Princess Club. And just, I love the story with my whole heart. It makes me laugh so much, but it's also such like a comforting read, but also disgusting in some bits, and so clever the way that it all twists together. I enjoyed rereading this so much. I've got a hold for the 2nd volume from my library. I don't actually know what I'm going to do after that because I want to keep rereading it, but my library only has volumes 1 and 2. Maybe I'll just go back to reading it on Webtoon, but maybe the limitations will end up annoying me. I guess we'll see. So that's all my reading. A pretty good week since we got new Bookshelves. We read a 5-star read. I think Provenance was probably a 4-star read, although Cursed Princess Club will also be a 5-star read, so it's a pretty good reading week. Pretty good week for my library. Let me know what you've been reading lately, or let me know if you've read any of the things that I read in this video, because I would love to chat with you about them down in the comments. Do subscribe if you'd like to see more of my bookish videos. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching. I hope that you are doing well, and I will see you next time.